As time moved forward, the lifespan of human beings increased. The graph was always up. Everybody knows the reason. It is science and technology. As science and technology moved up, our quality of life moved up. Today's societies are so organized that if at all you see any disorder anywhere, you can carefully conclude that it is illustrated. More or less, let's take 10,000 years back when agriculture began. It was the tools of plowing that gave us agriculture. It changed the economics and politics of that era. And 400 years back, mechanization gave us industry, which again rapidly changed everything around us. And today, we are amidst such kind of a transformation. And this transformation is nothing but automation of mechanization. Also, we can call this iotization. It's like the whole world is becoming as small as an iota. Iota as in Greek. At the same time, it is the Internet of Things. There are so many things around us that the whole world is immersed in these things. Almost 20 billion devices by 2020 are expected to be around us, out of which only 3 billion devices would make your smartphones, your laptops, or your computers. Remaining all of them are let it be your car braking systems, or your vehicle tracking systems, your fit bands, your coffee makers, or maybe smart clothing, or any of those things. So it's 17 billion of them around you, continuously collecting your data. Undoubtedly, this has automated our life. This definitely made our life simple. The debate here is not about whether automation is good for people or bad for people. The only debate here is whether this automation of mechanization, is it in the hands of the people or is it in the hands of a very few people whom you can call as plutocrats or plutocracy that we are part of today. In 1969, man reached moon through Apollo mission. At the time, there was a lot of computing capacity that was necessary to control the Apollo mission to reach moon. 64 kilobytes of memory running at 0.043 megahertz was the computing capacity of all of NASA. That is what made that mission possible, which is at least 1 million times less than the computing capacity of the cell phone that is there in your hand. How many times did we go to moon again? In fact, the discourse in the society at the time, say in 1968, there was a movie that got released, 2001: A Space Odyssey. People believed that by 2001, man would reach Mars, man would go to moon again, and maybe multiple times. Bilateral meetings would be happening in other planets is what was expected in 1968. It is 2019, and we know what our dreams are today. And there is another project which would just cost $2 billion. This project is about, when I say just, I would try to say why it is only $2 billion. We can send a satellite from Earth to Titan, which is a moon of Saturn, which is totally covered with ice, and you can drill that thick layer of ice, get inside it, go to the lower levels of water that's around there, and search for life. The total project cost here is just $2 billion. Compare this cost with $700 billion that were given to banks to bail out them during the global economic crisis of 2008. All the resources that are there around us are streamlined for one purpose: plutocracy. If that was not the case, technology would have been much, much higher, and we definitely would have reached the stars. Technology's biggest vulnerability is that it is stuck in the hands of a plutocracy, which stifles it and ensures it is always in its hands and it only serves the demands of plutocrats and nothing more. In fact, another example, an example which is more connected to us about the empire of connected things that we live in. Imagine a car braking system where a sensor is put to your brake and which continuously measures the amount of pressure that you put on the brake, and all the data is collected from you and a profile is made about you, and out of this profile, after 2 to 3 years, when you go back to purchase another car, this data is used to show you why your car insurance would be higher the next time you buy a car. This is what is, connected things or your technology working for the cause of plutocracy, but not for the people. And such vulnerabilities are not for the technology, my friends. It is the people who are vulnerable here. And these vulnerabilities are happening at different levels, starting with the physical infrastructure and to the application level. Plutocracy prevails everywhere. At the physical infrastructure level, what we have is your spectra, your 2G, your 3G, 4G, or 5G, whichever you call it. And also the physical optical fiber cables that are laid down across the nation. And also those Cat6 lines which are laid from the ISP to your home as a last mile connectivity. Imagine these two projects. Who owns the spectra? Do we people own it? No. It is the plutocrats who own it. And imagine a project like optical fiber cables, laying it all across the world, or at least a country, or at least a small state. It is an extremely capital-intensive project, and you have to be a plutocrat to attract a huge loan so that you can do all that capital-intensive project invested there. Pretty much that a normal human being can never be part of the physical infrastructure. Next, at the application level. At the application level, the biggest problem or the biggest vulnerability that you see is about gaslighting. If this is the first time that you're learning or hearing about gaslighting, gaslighting is this. Imagine a human being is subjected to few ideas, some information, and collection of data continuously every day in and out. What happens to this person? Will he remain the same person, or would he automatically, involuntarily gets tuned into according to the information that is given to him? He gets totally tuned according to the information that's given to him. And that is what is called as gaslighting. At an application layer, the biggest companies in the world does that to every user. The user imagines that he or she is downloading data from the cloud, but otherwise is actually happening. The central clouds collect data from you. They take all this data and they start data mining each and every individual and make profiles about you. Purpose, plutocracy, to serve it. So we are looking at these vulnerabilities, and maybe sometimes you would see a few examples where a common man happens to find a good stage and we feel happy about it. But do not get too overwhelmed with it. Such ideas are pretty old ideas. It happened in Greek democracy. It happened in Romans. It even happened, say, in your old mob movies, where the mob bosses have a very fraternal relationships across the neighborhood. They're very popular as good people, as dharmakartas of that area. So they do that so that they always have the neighborhood in their control. Because more or less that's what happens here in technology. If at all somebody happens to find a space, it is only that they would be able to control the discontent that is there around them. Friends, we are at this new world order with chief characteristics as gaslighting, It is totally centralized and it is sold. You don't have a place to go. You can't buy anything. Everything that can be bought is totally sold in technology. And it is totally so much centralized that internet in the olden days, say 20 to 30 years back, as Mr. Roy Singham, the founder of ThoughtWorks, said, internet in the early days used to be like a public park, but today it is a shopping mall. The face of internet has changed totally. It has one server, one cloud, which controls the whole world. That is what we are really worried about. And of course, the gaslighting. Total subversion of all the processes that we are part of. And what empowers subversion is total surveillance on all the human beings around us. These three things, my friends, makes the new world order. We are at a crossroads. Do we accept what is given to us, or do we build something of our own? Imagine we have a network that with a physical infrastructure that is owned by small communities everywhere. Any communication that happens between these communities is totally encrypted, and there can be no big company that can mine data from these communications. And it is totally net neutral. You call this as net neutrality. Imagine this network is totally neutral, where every human being who has something to say will get to speak or will get to express himself or herself. Imagine such a network. It would counter this new world order. Let it be search, let it be social networking, let it be instant messaging, or even accessing some content. All these four processes, which are the major processes that we are part of today, that any person on internet does today, all these things on this kind of network, if it is possible, imagine that world. This is what we call as a community Wi-Fi network. With its chief characteristics being, it is totally federated, it is encrypted, it is neutral, and it is accessible. If we have all these first three characteristics, and the fourth one is missing, say, if it's not accessible, if it's a very high cost, even ₹1 million for a village is an extremely high cost. That's the order that we're talking about here. It should be much less than that. It should be that accessible. In fact, a very big, huge corporation, which is popular for its social networking, came out with an idea in 2015. They said they will be giving internet to all the villages in India. People were glad. We were voting for them. But it did not take much time for us to explain what that really is. They said they'll only be giving access to those websites that are approved by that organization. Do you call that internet? They said all the communication that happens, it will be their responsibility. Can we believe them? And it's totally central, of course. And that is where we debated on this idea that community network models are possible. In fact, for our first project, which is in the village called Gangadevapalli, a village which is extremely popular for its cooperativism. From 1983, they have been following this ideals of cooperativism in this village. And this village gave us an opportunity to install there and start our experiments. The installation cost for this village is just 60,000 rupees. And the biggest giant of social networking, it is said in newspapers that they spent almost 300 crores as a campaign cost in 1 week for their internet project across the villages. 300 crores. How many villages in India can you give digital infrastructure with that money? 3 lakhs villages. That is half the number of villages that are there in India. With the cost that you can put for community Wi-Fi networks, which is 60,000 rupees, you can cover half of India. In fact, we did not have our hardware ready. We didn't know how does your home routers work as a total in a community model. We wanted to test new hardware. We were in all the marketplaces. We were approaching all the R&D people, plucking out the boards of all the home routers, soldering a pigtail onto it, putting a new antenna to it, going back to this village again and again, and testing it again and again. Finally, on Feb 17th, 2017, 2 years back, we had our first installation at Gangadevapalli. Along with it, we have a server, a community server called as a Freedom Box, which serves all the purposes of federation, encryption. It is totally net neutral, of course. And of course, the cost is just 60,000 rupees. You can easily classify it as accessible. So that way, this Gangadevapalli is born with a digital infrastructure. When we reached out to them, when we told them about this, they were totally nonplussed. How would it help them? But today, in Gangadevapalli, a school kid does his homework according to the content that's there on this network. A farmer uploads all his data that he is producing. He accesses market data on what is the capacity of cold storages around or near him. It is a real change that we could see with our eyes in Gangadevapalli. There are daily workers who would take snapshots of their work and upload it to the ISRO website, which is part of your daily wage labor scheme. It has more or less become a central part of their life. This is the major difference between a digital infrastructure that is made for the people and that is made for the plutocracy. In the digital infrastructure that is made for plutocracy, what you see is leisure. What you see is fake news. But when this digital infrastructure is made by the people, what you see is production, real sharing of information. And that is what we could see there. We did not just stop with Gangadevapalli. We moved on. And we reached more than 30,000 people and counting. Every day, right now, as I'm speaking here, there are people working at the border of Telangana and Maharashtra, installing a new village with this infrastructure. This is happening every moment, every day. And doctors are approaching us to use this as a method to reach out to rural audience. Farmers, maybe, who knows, we'll definitely be in a position to build a large platform for the market information. And teachers are orienting their teaching according to the content that is present on this network. And what you see there is this inclusiveness in digital liberty. 10 to 15 years back, when we started working for digital liberty, we believed that installing free software in each and every computer around us will give digital liberty to us. But plutocracy or the monopolies have moved from systems to the networks. Until and unless these community networks replace the networks of the plutocracy across the world, and we form a network that is made by the people, for the people, and of the people, we keep striving ahead. Thank you.